This is the New Culture Movement Memorial in Beijing, art museum. I think maybe is what I've seen it called in the Lonely Planet. Um, Names are always a little off for these sorts of off the beaten path things anyway. So this is where the library was for Peking University, and supposedly where Mao first started reading books on communism, socialism. Kaiyuan Pi. New Culture Movement Museum. Let's see. Chen Shui. Literary name Xi'an. Anhui Province. Anhui Province. New Youth Magazine. Democracy, vehemently denouncing the old ethic codes and culture. Railing against Confucianism, I guess. Commander-in-Chief of the May the 4th movement. Chief Leader Central Committee, CPC. With Li Dajiao. The Comintern. 1879. Situation along the Yangtze River. Vernacular Chinese. The Tiger. Patriotism and Volition. Civil rights appear to anything else. What is this maxim? Youth Magazine, later renamed New Youth, launching the New Culture Movement. I think this is what eventually morphs into the Cultural Revolution and youth movement of the Cultural Revolution. Decades later, maybe it was kind of readopted. More nebulous purposes. Romanized phonetic system. Pinyin, I guess, or something close to it. Declaration, Peking citizens drafted Chen Shui, 1919, arrested because of distributing leaflets. Mao Zedong published an article in the first issue of Xianjiang Review, highly speaking of Chen Shui. Written confessions and his name card. He's an agitator. People from all walks of life sent telegrams strongly demanding his release. Morning Post carried reports about appealing for release of Chen Shui. Vernacular poems in the magazine hailing the release of Chen Shui. 1920, early communist organization, Shanghai. He was the secretary. September 1920, revised New Youth turned out to be the organ of the Shanghai branch of the CPC. Communist, a monthly journal, served as an organ of the early communist organization in Shanghai. Translating, publishing many classics of Marxism and books for popular consumption. This is during the period when they founded the CPC, Circle of Workers. Shanghai Machinery Workers Union sent a letter to him. I think they were the ones who struck in 1920. I went to their guild hall down by the World Expo area in Shanghai. Let's see. His eldest son, Chen Yannian, Party Secretary, Guangdong Province, Jiangsu, and Zhejiang provinces, killed by the KMT government. 1927. There was a culture street in Shanghai I went to that was near where some of these people, I think, were rounded up and killed. 1927, they rounded up a half dozen or so of the new movement folks and bludgeoned them to death. Killed by the KMT, 1928. His second son, Chen Qiaonian, arrested by the KMT, 1932, in Shanghai. In prison, 1935, wrote a wall scroll. Liu Haisu, famous painter. The registration room. Job at the registration room to make registration, keep statistics, books, periodicals, library seal, envelope, registration card inside the envelope. Zhang Shenfu taught in Peking University 1918, once worked here. Li Daozhou organized a study work program here for some students who would use their spare time to come help books in order, do translating, cataloging job, typing cards. Mao Zedong once took part in this program too. Supposedly, if you're skilled with an abacus, it's about as fast as using a calculator. Same thing. What's that flag back there? It looks like the German flag with something else on the bottom there, another black and white stripe added to it. Renaissance magazine. And in 1919, Peking University students Fu Xinian, Liu Zhailun, Xue Yangji sponsored to organize the Renaissance Society, launching the magazine Renaissance with critical spirit, scientific doctrine, and innovative language. As its aim, the magazine opposed the stale old culture of feudalism and advanced literary revolution and became an important periodical in the new culture movement. It's important to emphasize the link between the old literature of Confucianism and learning and the job you would get when you graduated if you wanted to be involved in government, because the way you became a civil administrator through the dynastic periods, going all the way back to, I don't know, probably who was the first to found the imperial college system there? They talk about it at the Confucian Museum north of town. It's like the first thing I did when I got to Beijing. Um, it goes way back to like the Yuan dynasty or even before, the Song dynasty maybe. And you basically studied the 5 classics of Confucianism and then took a test. And based on how well you did at that test, it was like kind of like the Oxbridge system. If you got a first in your testing group, well, you could rise rapidly all the way up to the inner circle of the emperor, And if you were a second-tier person, you might be stuck at the provincial level. So that's why they were so much railing against the old literary tradition, because it was entwined with education. You were studying these old Confucian doctrines which emphasized filial loyalty to your parents, to your teacher, to your emperor. There are all these different relationships: brother, father-son, emperor, ruler, and subject, blah, blah, So it works very well for a semi-feudal society, but not for a modern industrialized society. And while they threw off the shackles of the Qing, there was still this transitional period to get away from, because they had so much turmoil over the years in the dynasties in China. They'd replace emperors, but the civil administration would largely stay intact, And so this Confucian system would stay intact. It was very hard to break even after they ousted the 1911-12 they ousted the Qing. And then there's a period of warlordism and civil wars too going on, but institutionally a lot of the Confucianism was held in place. And that was part of the whole Cultural Revolution, to try to get rid of that into the 70s, 1970s. They're still trying to do away with some of it, remnants of it, which is odd, because they wanted to somewhat have an agricultural economies. It didn't work out too well, actually. On the eve of May 4th, students from Peking University, headed by members of the Renaissance Society, made more than 3,000 flags and placards here. Liu Zhailun drafted a declaration of entire educational circle of Peking, which cried out the land of China would rather be conquered than betrayed. Chinese people would be rather slaughtered than humiliated. Declaration printed 20,000 copies before demonstrators started their march. Turned out to be the only printed matter of that day. Same thing. The Chinese people, in the 18th century endured, starvation, feudal peasant system, unreliable Qing government, with especially in the latter half, you had the Emperor Shishi pulling strings for her nephew and son as emperor, and doing crazy stuff like taking the money that they were supposed to use to modernize their navy and spending it on a big stone boat in Summer Palace. And I don't know if that's actually true, but it's symbolic of the kind of mismanagement that was happening at the top. And so you don't get the industrialization in, for instance, Japan. They oust the feudal system, they get rid of the shogun, they go back to the imperial system, oddly, but they adopt, it really becomes a civil administration, and they adopt a modern Western approach. And by the 1890s, they're kicking Russia and China's ass in naval battles because they have a modern, industrialized navy. So China didn't do that. It had a lot of problems educationally and so forth, Then China's getting carved up by the French and the British and the Americans and the Russians. Semi-colonialism, unfair treaties, indemnities. Who suffers? The middle class, the lower class. Office of Chief Librarian, 1918 to 22. Li Daozhou worked here, Chief Librarian, Peking University. Let's see. Old style book tucking building, transition to modern university in a real sense, overhaul reform, wake of October Revolution Russia. Li Daozhou made systematic efforts in studying and disseminating Marxism, became one of the earliest Marxists in China. 1920 discussion here with the Comintern representative Wojtyński, question of setting up Communist Party China. It was here in October, the same year that he set up together with Jiang Gutao, Jiang Shenfu, early phase communist organization of Beijing called the Communist Group, with himself as the person in charge. So I don't know if it's Mao's desk. That's what they say in the guidebook. Down by the riverside. There's a famous poster, political cartoon of China, a map of China, and then it's got symbols in the different territories, you know. Germans are up in the north, Russians up in the north, Americans want a slice, you know, so you got the symbols, Russian bear, rising sun of Japan, British bulldog, American eagle. Another office. This is Kai Yuan Pai. Pei. UN Pei. Like I am Pei, right? Kai Yuan Pei. K Yuan Pei. Style named He Qing, also Jiamin, literary name, Shaoxing County, Zhejiang Province. That's where they make good wine. Shaoxing wine. It's between Hangzhou and Ningbo, right? Dedicated at his earlier years to the Democratic Revolution, founded Guangfu Huai Restoration Society. During the Tongmeng Huai United League, served as First Minister of Education of the Provisional Government of the Republic of China. January 1917, assumed the presidency, National Peking University, pursued the policy of incorporating academic schools of diversity and freedom of thinking, carried out reform of the university to transform the old stale Peking University into a modern university of active minds and vigorous development, thus the center of the new culture movement, cradle of the May 4th patriotic movement. During his presidency in Peking University, made indelible contributions to reform development of China's higher education and the advance of the new culture movement. Here he is as a young man. Left for Germany to further his studies. The first generation of East Asians went to Europe. You were the top 1% anyway, to come back and train the next generation. So a lot of these people who founded modern China spoke fluent English and German and French. Here's a wood box that K. Yuan Pei used when he returned to his homeland from Europe. Steamer trunk, or the poor man's equivalent of a steamer trunk. Paper for imperial exam. See a lot of those over at the Confucian Museum. Immanuel Kant's Followers' Principle Ethics, translated, published by Kai Yuan Pai. Inaugural speech. I met a girl who was presenting a paper on Kant at St. Andrews. when I was at Edinburgh this summer. Kai Yuan Pai stressed that university was an institute of higher learning. Chen Dushui, Dean of School Liberal Arts, Peking University, Department of Philosophy. I
这里不让录像。
don't understand. Things?
TV. No.
Photo? Okay. More resistance against Japan. Photo? Okay.
这个录像是不行的。
Okay.
您把这个给